I'm Michael,
And I'm Drew.
and this is the Outward Realms Podcast, episode 12, October 2022, and we are back. And this is going to be a great episode because this episode and the following episode in November, we'll be discussing the two races that have never been talked about in the game. So that's really cool. They're being introduced in a call to arms, and we will also be discussing prior to that lore. We'll be talking about some of the cool stuff we're actually doing to get ACTA out the door. And then, of course, ending it with the previews, which people seem to like. And we have some really spicy images to show this time, so I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But for startings, let's spend a minute or two talking about ourselves and let everyone know what we have going on. Go ahead and kick us off, Drew. I understand you're doing a little bit of miniatures gaming.
Yeah, just a little bit. So I'm getting ready for the SoCal Open, and I've never needed to paint so many large miniatures in such a small amount of time. So been trying to shovel through that. How about yourself, man? What have you been working on?
Well, I have been working very hard on the public beta rules for the ACTA launch, which have to be done prior to the Kickstarter going live,
Yep,
right? So
yep.
that we can share a nice set of rules for folks. And this is a public beta, meaning that we intend for people to, when the Kickstarter launches, we want people to look through these rules, understand them, proxy with them. We'll give the base sizes for people, right?
Oh, okay.
And like we hope that people kind of get some games in a little bit if they can and give us some feedback, right? But the longer
Of
that
course.
rule set is out there, similar to with OR, we expect that it will improve as we get closer and closer to actually making the physical rulebook. Because that worked fairly well last time, so I'd like it to work better this time by getting it out even earlier.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you have got Shark Week coming up too. Are you doing any preparations for that as well?
Yes, absolutely. So Shark Weekend slash Conquest SAC is still happening. The weekend of November 11th to 12th, Veterans Day weekend.
Mhm.
We are on that Friday. Our event is taking place. Roll on. We still have some spaces open. So if you want to, please reach out to me at sovereign@outwardrealms.com or via Facebook Messenger or on our Discord is probably the best place. I'm the Sovereign. PM me and we'll get you on that list. There is no cost to come to our event. You may have to buy a convention badge. So there is a cost to that, but we're not charging for the event. I actually covered the cost of everyone's ticket for them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I
That's
just pay for
awesome.
it. And in preparation for that, I'm actually working on a brand new table of terrain as well.
Ooh, that's gonna be cool. I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, that should be a lot of fun. So
Excellent.
I expect to get that done in the real near future because I don't have a lot of time left, and it is some work to get that done. So,
Yep.
all right. So there is that. What else have we got? So from a building perspective, this is a reminder that ACTA will be an all plastic launch. So this is a plastic release, not
Ooh.
resin. And to make life more interesting on our end from a production standpoint, but better for you all of these ships are going to be multi-part kits, which means they have war gear. So you can modify these ships to help make them more your own.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
And the size of the ship like doesn't matter. So like if someone wanted to take two of the like realm kits and like smash them together and make like a massively like
Well,
some
not that.
monstrous thing like
Better to think of it as each ship as a single platform or chassis, and then you put on these plastic plates or plastic pieces that represent different weapon loadouts.
oh sure of
Right?
course.
Yeah. So and we intend for all of the ships to have some amount of customability. Some ships are more limited than others. Obviously, a Corvette doesn't have a lot. We're calling them hard points. So it's a
Okay.
hard point system, and there are various kinds of hard points to represent how much space they take on the ship, how much energy they're using,
Makes sense.
and their output sort of represents that too. Like a spinal hard point can only fire straight forward, but it's a very strong weapon, right? So a
Sure.
really limited firing arc, but quite a lot of impact in the game. Um, yeah, so there's all that. We're really busy with that portion and the writing portion as well. So I mean, it's been crazy,
You've
and
been
not
working
to
on it
forget.
nonstop.
I know, and not to forget not to forget our Outer Realms people. I have not forgotten about Shadow War. We are quietly working on that in the background as well.
In the shadows, working on it.
In the shadows, yes,
In the shadows,
absolutely, in the
yep.
shadows, and that's kind of fitting for what we have planned from a lore perspective this episode, which I'm sure people are excited for us to get to. So ACTA is a really great place to introduce a couple races who are newer and who are um, just starting to emerge more in a space type of way than on the ground, right? Like,
Sure.
where you're encountering these interstellar species in space when they're traveling, when they're doing things, fighting over resources there before, they don't have as many worlds taken. Like one of these races doesn't even really is not competing for the same planets as anyone else, which is interesting. Although we are the resource they're after, and that's who we're talking about today.
Hey, excellent.
Yeah. And so the new race is called the Skyphy, and
Skyfy.
I want to discuss a little bit about their inception. So something that you don't see too often in a science fiction game is intelligent life from gas giants.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Right.
Yep.
And there's a couple really big problems for any race trying to escape the massive gravity well and radiation belts of a gas giant. The biggest problem is probably the fact that there's no ground, right?
Right.
It's really hard to build a technological base when you don't have anything, when you can't put anything down.
Oh, right. There's no tables. You've got no solid. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
All right.
and often they're mostly hydrogen, so probably fire is not the chemical method to build things with.
Maybe
Right?
just a little bit. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you can imagine that most races that might evolve in such a strange place would not ever leave that place, right?
There's no need to. They
Similar
don't have any.
to
Yeah.
similar to like a whale on Earth, right? Like, let's say a whale. We don't know for sure the whale's intelligence level in real life, but let's say they were a high level of intelligence. Not saying that whales are not. I don't know. Do we have a lot of whale listeners? I don't know why I'm trying to pander to them. But I use that as an example as something in an environment that would have a difficult time leaving its environment, right? Whales are not building fires. Whales are not making spears. They're not building spacesuits. They're not launching away. They're not doing any of that stuff, right? They might live fully intelligent, fully realized lives, but they're not impacting their environment in a great way.
Sure. Right.
So in that sense, so something that actually the whale analogy is really good because the Skyphy are big. Like an actual Skyphy itself is quite large, right? It's like as big as a realm tank. They're jellyfish-like creatures, right?
Okay.
They are sacks of gas, mostly gas, right?
I'm trying to picture this. That's why I'm sorry for being silent,
Picture like maybe like something like a Portuguese man o' war floating around on these gas giants, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And so they live in a very hostile environment, and that environment, very hostile. Lots of radiation, very limited access to higher end materials, right? But these have two really killer features from an evolutionary standpoint, right? This is how they became impactful to the galactic stage, and two killer features and one piece of good luck. Well, good luck for them, bad luck for everyone else. Which is the progenitors, the first race that ran around, that made the Nightfall, ran around doing a bunch of things. They put these gates all over the place, right? It's how they transported. They did not use blink drives. They did not use inertialess drives. Not really. They simply used these gates and teleported around, right?
Okay.
And so you can find in every star system has at least one of these gates. right?
Sure.
And they are used for a variety of reasons. They were used for traveling too. They were also used for mining, right? And you
Okay.
mine gas giants by
Yeah.
hoovering out large amounts of gas,
Yep. Yep.
right? Well, the only way to access these gates is to be psychic. You have to have a psychic ability to perceive them and to, interact with them.
I was gonna say turn them on, right? To like to activate them,
Yeah, to
right?
actually engage with them, right? And so the Skyphy had one of these gates on their world, and they are psychically active. So
Cool.
they
Okay.
went ahead and found this gate, and with experimentation, and actually their experimentation they have an easier time doing the blind testing with teleportation gates than other races might have, because for one thing, a Skyphy doesn't care if it's in space; they're immune to vacuum,
Yep.
right? And so when the gates would teleport them out into the middle of space, yeah, it sucks for the Skyphy because it's got to like float somewhere eventually and get to a place.
Right.
But they eat radiation and they don't care about vacuum. So really, like, there was a lot of blind testing that left these things like kind of floating out in the middle of nowhere until they finally figured out how to get to places. And that's where their other killer feature comes in, which is they
Okay.
grow. So they have a symbiotic relationship with a set of parasites that are on them. The parasites help maintain their skin. They clear off other, things that would infect them, right? They're sort of like an exterior immune system.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and they're psychically controlled by the Skyphy itself.
Huh. Okay.
Yep. And that's sort of like their small little manipulation. But the more important thing is the Skyphy, through their own experimentation, discovered that if they get one of these parasites onto something that has a nervous system, the parasite can burrow in and they can control that person involuntarily until the person dies.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Wow. 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 Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
And so that is how they started getting hosts, right? Like they can't enter a building. Most buildings are too small for them, right? They
Right.
can't enter a spaceship that's not designed by them for them,
Right.
but they can send their hosts around to do that work.
Interesting. Can they see what the hosts are
They
doing?
can't
They can.
see through them, but
Okay.
they can give them commands, and it removes the communication barrier because it's
Yeah.
the psychic connection.
Yep.
And it basically, the person is sort of trapped in their body from a consciousness perspective while their
Sure.
body does things, and eventually the immune system, they're infected, right? So the immune
Right.
system is fighting this parasite the whole time, and all these hosts eventually die of immunoshock, right?
Right.
And there has never been a successful removal of one of these parasites, unfortunately. The way that it kind of inserts itself does a lot of nerve damage to the person, right?
Yikes. Sure.
Yeah, and
Or
so
to the
it's
to the organism, right?
right, and it works on anything that has a nerve stem. So it works
Okay.
on Hexagoda, it works on
Yep.
Batra, works on humans, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay. So
yeah, and
these.
that's what they've been up to.
So I was gonna say this race doesn't really have a natural predator because
No.
in space the only thing that they've really interacted with that has like been able to harm them is like certain types of radiation, right? Like
Actually, they don't care about radiation at all. The things that kill them would be like if you burst them open and set them on fire, they are a large percentage of them is hydrogen gas, so
sure,
they burn. They
right.
don't like that. Shooting holes into them, if you shoot enough holes into them, they will die.
They leak
Right?
out, right? Their insides leak out, right?
Yeah, like you'll hit
Okay.
something important, and so that philosophy. Another important thing about this race is they do not get along. They are not.
Oh,
Yeah, they're
okay.
not cooperative very well. They don't trust one another, and their primary form of warfare is launching their parasites. It was for a long time launching their parasites at each other, punch holes through the skin and
Okay.
kill their brethren, right?
Wow.
And that's how they held territory, and that was their main weapon. But once they discovered this gate, small groups of them were able to form enough of a truce to go out because now they had something new to do, right? Like the
Sure.
second you introduced an other to their society, as it were,
Yep.
they had something they could inflict on.
Yep.
And actually they pretty rapidly comprehended certain aspects. Like their initial ships were just normal ships, right? For a while.
Okay.
Just like whatever they could capture. But then once
Sure.
they got their, once they had an understanding to some extent of how the technology worked, they started building their own fleets. And now basically that's their primary spreading vector, right? If they're
Sure.
going in person, if they're showing up to a new place, they can use a gate, right? A couple Skyfy, 2 or 3 Skyfy could pop into a new place and start infecting people and building up a host network and then spreading, right?
Sure.
But if they want to get a lot of Skyfy to a place, you need a ship. And that's why they've been building ships.
Sure. And their fleets are a lot larger as well because each one is like the size of a car, right?
Well, yeah, so it's not that they're that much bigger per se in terms of aggregate size because there's sort of a mass limit when you're using blink drive technology, and they're using blink drive technology because it's the best thing they've been able to find, aside from using the gates themselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they build ships with a large central open space, like a sphere of gas, right?
Sure.
And they get to live in that sphere of gas, and then the rest of the ship is sort of built for the hosts, right, to live and work in.
Right.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah. Because
Because they can't operate control panels. They don't know, even blink drives are too small for them to really work with, right? I mean,
Sure.
they're big. And all of the stuff they've been stealing and basing it off of is all based on smaller things, and they don't really have a ton of interest in doing any more work than they have to just propagate and infect others and accumulate
with
power.
these. Yep. Must have been really funny when the first one like brought an organism into space and then it died, and they were like, "Oh crap!" So these things need ships to stay alive in space.
Well, yeah, and it helps them get around, right? This has
Yes.
really helped them spread out. Now, for many decades, the Unbound kept them at bay. They understood the level of the threat, and it wasn't out of a sense of altruism for anyone else, but it was they're spreading through unbound space, and they're a really terrible problem. And so
Right.
for a long time, the Unbound just quietly squashed them where they could, but they've gotten past them now. So they're out in the galaxy in general doing Skyfy things.
Sure. Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I'm having a hard time trying to like picture how these beings like live in space. And now, okay, so do they have like you mentioned that they're now that they have the hosts, or
Mm-hmm.
they can choose different hosts? Do they have this sort of like warmongering of like, oh yeah, we're gonna conquer everything, or
They're
are they
actually, think of them more like an amoral infection, right?
okay?
They understand that they want to spread and grow. They also understand that the other galactic powers are stronger than them, and so they're being pretty careful, right? If they're going to try to take a place, they're going to try to take it completely. They don't want a big response, right? They
Sure.
want, so, going to like one of the main golden worlds from a house would be a pretty big ask for them. But like some
Okay.
colony, like a mining colony, they can wipe a whole mining colony quietly. And it's weird for us because we go to the colony and it's completely empty. All the materials have been stolen, all the tools are gone, all the people are gone, and it's just like one day they're there, next day they're not. It's all
Yep.
Roanoke Island
They just
kind of
got up
thing.
and left. No bloodstains. No
No.
nothing. Nothing. All the ships are gone too. Everything.
Yeah, they
Oh,
just
that's
took
super cool though.
everything and left. And a lot of that gets blamed on Unbound.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they think
Okay.
the Unbound are like the current trend of thinking is that there's this wave of slavery occurring within the Unbound. Like now they're taking like captors, and that's not really the case.
Hmm.
These like vacuuming up of whole colonies are the Skyfy doing
Oh, the
it.
Skyfy taking them out. Wow. All
Yeah.
right.
The Unbound do capture skilled individuals for skilled labor, and they do have a forced labor model for that to some extent, but
Sure.
it's not hoovering up entire colonies. They're not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
If they raid a colony, they're there to take stuff and get out. When the Skyfeet come to a colony, they're there mostly for the individuals,
Mm-hmm.
and then they just whatever else is
Just
convenient.
left. Yep.
Yeah, right. So
Wow.
yeah, they've been they're the first completely amoral faction, right? They do not think of people or any other sentient beings as anything else other than limited lifespan extensions of their own purpose.
I'm speechless, man. It's
Yeah.
really cool. It's good stuff. I haven't seen or heard of anything. I mean, I'm not like a super big D&D guy, but like I'm sure there's something that's similar. But yeah, just like hearing this for the first time is like, oh, dude, count me in, man. I'm excited. What do their ships look like? Do we have any? Do we get anything?
So we're
from
not going
that?
to
Like,
reveal any. We're not going to reveal any Skyfeet ships right now. That's not what
dang
today
it.
is going to be about.
I'm
But
sorry.
I wanted to at least talk about them, and it'll be the same thing for the new race. At least you'll hear about what they're up to, and I promise that we'll get a pretty big reaction out of them as well,
Sure.
because they're very cool. I like them a lot. But if people, I know that there's people who like the bad guy. They're really like, I want to play the
Sure.
most sinister race, and by far it is these creatures, right?
Interesting. Okay. So
Yeah.
I got a question for you real quick from our chat here. The Space Marine or the
The
Pick
Epic
Space
Space
Marine?
Marine.
Yeah, the Epic Space Marine. How do they interact with the Nifal?
Yeah, so they don't take them over. They just, when they run into them, they attempt to destroy each other. The Nightfall recognize them as sentient life because, they're in a spaceship.
Sure.
And the Skyfee, there's nothing to be gained from destroying them other than destroying them, right? Like, there's no host there.
So the Nifal can draw the parallels between the organisms that are burrowed into the host and the big blob in the ship that's just kind of
Not
like sitting around.
necessarily, but Nightfall knows what humans look like. They knew what Botcher looked like. They
Sure.
Regardless of the reason why they're there. If they're doing the directive, they're there to destroy them. So
Got it.
that doesn't really change anything. The Nightfall have some comprehension that there are these additional races, right?
Okay.
Especially the other one we'll talk about. They're very aware of that one, but this one, they don't draw much of a distinction. They have a vast internal database of countless races that they've eliminated.
Sure.
This is not anything extra. The only thing unusual about these races is that they're not on single worlds and they're not just exterminated, right? They're like all over the place. So
Yep. Well, it's also interesting too, right? Because you talk about how they come from gas giants, right? And so I'd assume the Nifal have like a long backlog of history because they've been around forever, right?
Yep.
So like they know, oh, these things aren't gas giants. Why is it in this spaceship? Like with this,
right
with
yeah,
all this stuff,
weird.
like this is not. Yeah, something's wrong here, right? Like there is sentience. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
Travis, destroy.
Yeah, and trying to figure out where they came from because most.
Yes.
Remember, they can't perceive anything psychically, so they can't find the gates. They can't do any of that stuff. So all of a sudden, there's this race, and they're searching through their world databases. They're like, "What is going on? Why?
Yep.
How did we miss this?"
That's cool. That's cool. I love that. The interaction between the different species, I think, is one of the coolest parts about this game. And I mean, we're gonna get to see it on the tabletop, right? So that's
You will, yeah.
cool.
Every fleet is. I like the distinction between them, right? Visually, they follow their visual themes. Obviously, for the Skyfee and the next race, that's the first theme they're using. And the Realm and the Unbound, I'm hoping that people can see that the Unbound are human ships that have been repurposed, and the new Realm ships, so that everything got redesigned, right? And I've been calling it 2.0. And there's two reasons for the redesign. Number one is I want all of the ships designed by the same design team. So that means there's a uniformity to them.
Yep.
Whereas before they were designed by different individuals and there's some difference there, right? I want that uniformity. The second part is if we're moving to these multi-part kits, every ship has to be designed to have those pieces that come off and come back on, right?
Right.
And that required pretty extensive reworking. So yeah, that's why we've done that. And what else do you want to know about these evil space jellyfish?
So I guess the biggest thing is like weaknesses, right? Like you mentioned fire, obviously the gas giants, right? In space there's no fire, so they wouldn't really have anything like that. Um it's actually really cool. You don't know this, but when I was in middle school, I created a Godzilla monster for
Ooh.
Godzilla to fight, and it essentially was one of these things. It was a giant floating cell that could grab things and like integrate it into its own body, which is quite interesting. But I keep going back to that as you're like describing this, and I'm like, oh, this is like if it was a species, is really cool. So I guess that's my next question is do the Skyphy have like okay, so they have the parasites that they can plug into some other organism and control it. Have they tried or are they working at trying to integrate things into their own system, like into their own body, like maybe another organism to help clean their insides out better, or like
No, they
a weapon grafted onto the side of one of these things?
not particularly.
Okay,
They're pretty aloof and they're resistant to that sort of behavior, right? They're not cybernetically
sure,
enhancing themselves. They're pretty new, right? Right
sure,
now they're winning their fights because they have the capability to turn people into their own forces, and
yes,
the surprise factor in the game itself from a mechanical perspective. So, like Outward Realms, every single faction has their own special things that make them unique, and every single ship has a special rule that makes it unique to kind of represent its original purpose or its chassis, right?
sure, yep, yep,
And
what
for
it
the
does,
Skype, they have a resource that no other faction has called Infected Crew, which represents how much how many hosts they have on board. And so they can, because they're very callous, they can sacrifice infected crew for positive effects, right? Like if their ship takes damage, and and normally when these ships are damaged, I mean they're using technology that's derived from Realm and Batra ships, so and even Hexagoda ships in the sense of the blink drives. So they'll
right?
have blink drives, they have exotic fuel reservoirs, all that. That's a lot of radiation. Normally, one of the dangers for repair crews and engineers going into these radiation flooded sections is that that hanging out in there is bad for your
Yeah,
health.
yeah, I was gonna say you get burned, your skin starts to decay and
Right,
all that.
right.
Okay.
But they don't care at all about that. They will just launch people into there to get things done. And if the host dies, what do they care?
Yeah.
So
So,
they can repair their ships. They can do things with these infected crew.
yep. Big, big question is, do they have to? The organism has to be alive. Could they? Could the thing that infects the host give off like electric impulses to move a dead body?
No, no.
No. Okay.
Once they can't control the nervous system, the parasite removes itself and then goes off to go do something else. There are problems that means like after a Skype is cleared out, there could still be parasites there, waiting.
Interesting. So they don't
Yeah.
have to be in proximity to them in order to infect
No,
someone.
and they have a kind of an instinctive desire to link to a person and feed off of them until the person's dead, right?
Oh, of course. Right. Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, they're a parasite.
I
That
was
is
gonna say that.
that is literally what they do.
That's literally what they
Um,
do. Yep.
so you'll have a ghost ship that's been cleared out, and like they'll be trying to clear it out, and there's these parasites there, and then some of those people turn on those people, and then it turns into a real B science fiction movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say it turns into the thing essentially, right?
Right.
Like that's pretty cool. You kind of
Yeah.
answered Steve's question here. The Skyphy have weapons and armor naturally, or do they make suits and weapons? It's yeah, they take over the host,
No.
and
Yeah,
that's
they take
the
over
host
hosts.
is where they get them from. Interesting.
Yeah, and so they just use their size and distributed body systems to kind of keep themselves safe, right? Like you can hose these things with Gatling fire, and like it's just going to punch holes that seal themselves back up, and you're mostly hitting empty gas.
Yep, it's
You
like
didn't
a
really do anything, right?
yep. That's so cool. Is there a leader? Do they have a
They
big
have named
bigger?
characters. They have named characters in ACTA. Every single faction has admirals, and
Oh,
they're
okay.
no exception, right?
Excellent.
These are members of their race that are exceptional and are really tearing it up out there. So
Cool. I'm wondering, like, is it based off of like? I'm just thinking of like different colored blobs, right? This is yellow Skyfy and like orange Skyfy, right? Like orange one does a lot of damage. Yellow one has a bunch of like host parasites, right? Like,
Yep. Well, actually, there a lot of them are and what they do with their infected crew is part of that thing.
oh,
Another
that's so
fun
cool.
feature is in ACTA there are boarding actions. Anyone who's looked at the
Yep.
previous or the current version of the rules knows that when they do a boarding action, they replenish their infected crew, and then that ship can't do boarding actions for the rest of the game because
Wow.
they're busy
Okay.
dealing with what just happened to them. Right?
Yep. Yep. They're busy living out the life
That
and
scenario that we
times of
talked
a
about. Right?
yeah the life and times of a B horror movie
That's
on a
right. The
ship.
life and
Yep.
times of the horror movie.
That is so cool.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice thematic way to represent what they're doing. So the ship can still operate, but you know that all their armsmen and troopers on board are busy fighting parasites and fighting each other. Right? They're too busy
Yeah.
to do any more boarding actions at that point.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. Steve's got a good question here. So we have the Unbound that use like repurposed realm ships.
Yeah.
Does that mean that the Skyfy are also going to be sort of like the like use other ships from other factions
No, they
for their
actually have
own?
built their own things. They
Okay.
have their own ships now, which are comfortable for them and aid them in the way they process stuff. And they will have a very unique look. But you should expect that they have that. They should all be oriented around that central sphere. And it is you raised a good point about the size. So in ACTA there are ship classes. They do
Right.
not have the smallest ship classes at all.
Oh, because they can't fit in them. Or
Right.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So they
Cool.
build their classes. They have more larger ships than smaller ships. There you go.
I like that. I like that. Hey, Johnny. Welcome from Red Bluff. Hello there. Hello
Yeah.
there. Cool.
So
All right.
that's what they have going on. Yeah. So that's them in general. And then next episode we will talk about the last race that has not been talked about. And all these questions about the OR perspective, obviously that's a long way out. If we have an opportunity to introduce them into the regular game, that would be great. Some thinking has gone into that, but at this time, we're really focused on getting ACTA out and making the best game we possibly can.
No, of course, and it's so interesting to see. I'm just picturing for OR like 5 or 6 of those 60, what is it, 100 millimeter bases with just like sacks on them just rolling around. But I know that that's not, we just talked about that's not what they do. So, but yeah, a funny thought, as it were.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've talked about that. I think people want to see some ships.
Yeah, I
Is
was
my
gonna
guess.
say. So what do you got for us today, man? What do we do?
All
What are we
right,
doing? So we're moving on from
we're gonna
Skyfy. What are we
we
doing?
have really nice Unbound ships to show off, and then we will show off one of
Ooh,
the new Realm redesigns.
sure.
All right, here we go. Okay, and here we are. So we are. Woo!
Oh, nice. Into the void we go.
Into the void we go. Okay, so
What?
we'll
Oh!
get back to that. We'll get back to that. We're going to start with Unbound.
Oh, that's so
So,
cool.
so this is what the Unbound fleet looks like, and I want to talk about these ships a little bit. This is one of the 3 studio color schemes, so I wanted to show that off. The things we're trying to evoke with this fleet are the industrial feel of them, right? These are all ships that are regular realm ships that have been repurposed into warfare, right?
Yep.
Um, each of these ships has a job in the realm. You will find these all over the place doing what they do. For the Unbound, they've obviously weaponized them and turned them into piracy. That also helps them because when they jump into systems, they look like a normal ship, right?
Yep.
And so, like, here this is a medium, this is a destroyer chassis, right? We have this, and I like all this like kind of industrial little motifs, all these ridged panels and such. Really, really nice. We have a survey ship. You can see it has landing legs, right? So it has the capability to land on the surface of Earth, and this
Yeah.
big open observation platform that I thought evoked that really well, right? We have their smaller ship right here. It's got its blink drives kind of up in the front, and then a big bay here, kind of a skiff kind of model. Over here we have a medium freighter. So you can see that these are detachable cargo containers that have been repurposed to be full of guns. So these have you can see the gun emitters. Previously, these would be filled with cargo, right?
Yep.
And you could see the rails these can be detached, and this can detach from these two sections too. Not in the game itself, but from the design perspective. And you could also see a scenario where with these extra rail pieces, more of these cargo containers could be stacked on, right?
That's
That's
too cool.
kind of the
Yeah.
perception of that.
It's
But
like
of
it's like
course, oh, go ahead.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. So this one that we're talking about, it's like a truck, but the flatbed is on the front.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And this thing, when people see the model, they'll understand immediately that this portion is like the front part of the truck, right? And this is the cargo section.
Yeah. No, of
Yeah.
course.
And then we have the mining ship, right? The largest. This is the battle cruiser chassis for the Unbound. And you can see that up here in the front, what this is designed to do is it goes to asteroids and locks onto them and just, grinds them up and then processes it in their vast processing centers, right?
Yep.
So it just grinds all that stuff up and does that. Inside you see a bay here, and yeah. So it's a big mining vessel, a lot of bulk.
A lot of armor too, right? Like
Oh yeah.
that the main vessel goes around in asteroid belts, right? Hunting
Mm-hmm.
things down. It looks like it can take a few hits.
Absolutely, and it probably isn't too much fun getting rammed by this ship.
Yeah,
Is
no,
my
that's probably one of the coolest parts. It almost looks like a metal flower, right? Like
Yeah, a little bit. I liked the teeth, the big grindy teeth. I liked that a lot. I thought that was a cool touch, and they have grinders on the ends here. Yeah. So that's the overall fleet. Here you can see the destroyer firing. So
ooh,
this is the artwork you're seeing here is unfinished artwork. It may not make the book. Like you could see that we don't have a space background here that hasn't been inserted.
right.
But this is more of a texture test to understand how we're lighting and coloring in these ships so that when we're basically building art tables so that we can make a lot of art for the book that we want to make, right? I want every single ship to have a full page color, a
Spread.
full color page spread for
Yep.
that ship, right? And then throughout the art book, I want to see engagements with these ships. I want to see them fighting each other. And so we need all of this stuff designed and laid out. But I love the windows here kind of in this section, right? You can
Yeah.
you get a feel for what this is all about when it's firing its maser emitter and then it's got its mag cannons going.
Man, that's cool looking.
Here's a bigger picture of the big ship, right? You can more prominently see its clamps, its teeth, its bay. You have its weapon systems lighting something up.
Yep.
These cool clan markings on it. I really dig this, and this looks really beat up and industrial. I just love that a lot. It looks used.
Yeah, there's something about like orange with black, right? Like,
Yeah,
obviously being from like the Bay Area is like, oh, okay, okay. But yeah, man, I mean, especially for, October, I'm looking at this and
yeah.
all I'm thinking of is
Spooky
Halloween, and I'm
season.
like, this is a good episode to do this. This is great. They look awesome, dude. I cannot wait to see these in person.
Oh, absolutely, and it'll be a while. So our plan for model previews, we're only going to have the Botcher and Realm at first, and that's going to be sent out there. And there should be some content made for those for the Kickstarter, right? But the
Okay.
purpose of the Kickstarter is to get the funds to make the other factions,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've got kind of another shot with some destroyers and the big one here, maybe in a
Sure.
nebula, some dusty red place,
Hmm.
and
And then,
then
oh,
oh, so here we have a battle cruiser getting torn up by some lighter Batra ships, right? So it looks like it's going not so great for this one right here.
yeah, I was gonna say it's like laser strings.
Yeah,
That's
so the Botchers still use lasers for their ships. They're still called slicers, and you
yep.
can see them doing their namesake on this ship, right?
Yeah, I almost feel like we needed like an Outward Realms like ABC, right? Like S is for Botcha Slicer, right? Like
Yeah, absolutely.
that's
Slicer
awesome.
Slicer sounds like. And the Realm Chiyu class cruiser. So this is the 2.0 version of these, and for those that saw the old ships, you can tell this is a pretty big departure from those. It's a full redesign. So yeah, there's not much else to say other than it's very, very different.
Looks
Um,
cool.
Thank you. Yeah, and they've gotten a nice this whole section right here. So like there's an aperture right there that has a spinal weapon that's interchangeable. There's a couple different choices. This mag rail cannon, there's one on the other side as well. They are called integral weapons, right? Which means they come with the ship.
Yep.
They
You get
can't
what you
be
pay for.
interchanged or locked out, right? They're a big part of the ship's firepower and output. Consequently, you also don't pay additional points for them,
Oh, of
right?
course.
You
I mean,
get
it's part of the
them.
chassis. Yeah, you when you pay for
Yeah,
the ship, you also get this weapon base with it. No, of
absolutely.
course.
And so the Chiyu's side bays, where it would have bays to put other weaponry, is used up by this mag rail. So the
Ah, okay.
Fear class carrier, which is the same body but is very different in the sense that it doesn't have these mag rails. It has fighter bays, right?
Right.
Instead.
Yep. For more
And so
troops.
you've also got these pieces here. This represents more customization. So on both of these sides, you could see this piece has a line. Our intent is that this will be two pieces. So when you basically each of these is a hard point. So you have your hard point here, and then on this ship, you have a spinal hard point. You have what we call a munitions hard point, which represents missiles and torpedoes. This
Sure.
is a missile battery, right? You could see that they could launch missiles out, right? And they have a
On the side,
little,
yeah.
and they have some course adjustment capability, right? So they kind of launch out to keep the blast away from the ship, right?
Right.
And then they kind of home in, right? A little bit of Macross missile anime style, right?
Yeah,
And
yep,
then
yep.
I mean, there a little of that energy, and then right here you'd have, I believe that's a mag cannon. And so when you're building your fleet, you can look at the options and design it the way you want your ships to be, right? Like what role they're filling and what weapons you like, and obviously points are a factor. Maybe you needed 5 points somewhere, so you strip these down to a different weapon, right?
Yep, yep.
So you have that whole capability. Up here, you have the you have fighter launch area, right? So they can come out and go do their thing. Yeah, blink drives, technology we're all familiar with here. But yeah, that is the Chiyu class cruiser, the brand new
I
one.
I love the sleek design of it. The engines on the bottom and on the side looks real good, man.
Yeah, one engine down here. It's got 5 blink drives. It's
Yep.
it's it's quite a little ship, but I love this new aesthetic. I think it's perfect. And it's still the segmented panels and little tiny visual motifs. Hopefully, people can link those to the Unbound. Right, this was all human designed. Right at the end of the day, and the blink drives are also very similar too. That is not accidental.
No, of
So
course. With the buildable parts too, like it almost is like, man, my imagination for like what the Unbound are gonna have is crazy, and I would love to see, obviously Unbound are gonna have their own ships, but I
yeah,
know
well here
someone's
they are,
gonna
right? We
yeah, someone's gonna take, some realm ships and like, mix and match, right? Like I was like, oh,
I mean,
that's
if they
too
want to
cool.
do conversions like that, I mean, as long as it's clear to their opponent what they're
Yep.
doing, but there's not, these weapon systems are not mixable, right? Like this
No, of
mazer
course.
emitter does not go
Does
onto
not
a
go on
realm
to.
ship. Yeah, they're
Yep.
faction specific. For lack of a better term, they're faction specific war gear. But
Right. No.
what you'll be able to see here is this bit right here. This is a mazer emitter, which is an energy weapon. Um, that could be changed out with probably this mag array right here,
Mm.
right? Like you could do, oh, this whole thing, probably this piece right here is my guess, would be the interchangeable spot. So you'd like, when you're building out your ship, you're like, oh, I want three mag cannons, or I want, three masers, or whatever.
Yep.
So, exactly. So that's where those interchanges come in. Like these could be turned into something, right? Depending on their hardpoint types. This is where
100%.
its energy weapons are, right?
Right.
Now,
And
the integral weapon in every Unbound ship is actually a torpedo launcher.
oh, I
So
didn't know that. Interesting. Okay.
yeah, they all have a torpedo launcher facing forward. So,
Right.
and you're gonna see that. You're gonna see integral weapons probably on every ship,
On every ship.
right?
No, of course. That makes,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a war game, right? Like that's what you're gonna have that. It's
Well, and it's the
impossible to
base
not.
thing that's so built into the chassis that it doesn't it can't be removed, right?
Right, right. I
So,
want to I want to apologize to you. All the things that I have been talking about have basically been conversions, but not actually like basic, oh, you can swap these two weapons out, right? So I apologize for that. But yeah, no, the conversion abilities, I can't stop thinking about it. Like I want to see the ships, man. I can't wait. Let's do it
yeah, oh yeah, we're
together.
we're working super hard. And again, next episode, I hope people tune in for that because we're going to have more stuff to talk about and show.
Yeah. Do you know if we? Well, I know that we don't know this. I'm gonna spring this on you. Do you want to have the next show after Shark Week so we can like talk about all of that, or do we
Yeah,
want to do
maybe
it
maybe we
before
do it
Shark
that
Week?
way. Maybe that's a good call. Um,
Sure.
yeah, I know you're not going, but you'll want to hear about what
Yeah.
happened.
No, 100% exactly, and that's where I'm like, ooh, okay. Hopefully, I get some friends going down there too, and we'll take some photos. I want to see everything, man. And actually, that was my next question, and I think you mentioned it once or twice before. May there be a demo for Acta there, or is it just going to be OR?
It's just gonna be OR, and it's just the one day. We're doing
Right.
our event. It's just another way to get people together and out there playing. If you want to show up, we have a few armies available on a first come first served
Of
basis.
course.
I think I'm bringing one of each faction is kind of the goal. You can bring your own models. There's no painting requirement. There's no cost other than a con badge, and we really hope people stay. And a reminder for those that play other games, 40K and AOS both have events in the next 2 days, so you could get rooms at that hotel. If you're going to get a room there, please reach out to me so I can help get you a discount. There
Oh,
is a
very nice.
Yeah, there's a room code thing going on, so I want to make sure that you get taken care of and go to the right place and get your rooms. I am going to that 40K event as well, so I'll be playing Outward Realms. Well, probably not playing, but most likely running Outward Realms the first day, and then I will be in the major happening the next 2 days.
The next 2 days, yep.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right. I think that's an episode. I think we did it.
Yeah, I think we did it too. That's great. Lots of thank you guys for all of you in the chat for your commentary.
Yeah,
Hope you guys
absolutely.
love
Thanks for
the
showing up, everybody.
yeah, and the pictures look amazing. I can't wait to see what the book is gonna look like, dude. Like
Oh yeah.
I
It'll be a lot
I
of fun, but how about I
yeah.
finish writing all the rules first?
Oh yeah, no, rules
Yeah, I have to
they
get through my
have to
tasks,
come
and then
first.
and then
Yep,
co-designer Alex has to go through and um, polish everything and make sure he's happy with it all. And then, of course, the public playtest is the most important part, right? We
100%.
really, we really need those eyeballs on things, helping us review and make it the best game we can.
Exactly. Yep, yep.
All right. This is the Hour Realms podcast. I'm Michael,
And I'm Drew.
and we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.